So Shelley, we're out here on your beautiful property in Pickens, and I just would like to ask why you work outside. What is it about working outside that works for you and your clients?
Um, well, I'll tell you why it works for me. It's because I like being outside more than I like being inside. Why it works for clients is another topic, but I can address the first part and say that I always knew I didn't want to sit in an office all day, but I didn't have a model for how to do it differently. And it wasn't until 2005, I think it was, that I got life coach training and had to really look at how I was working and how I wanted to work. And there were people in that program getting training in equine assisted therapy. And while I had known about equine assisted therapy and had horses all my life, been a horsewoman all my life and had horses on my property, so it was a natural fit, I just wasn't sure about it and didn't know very much about it. But as I got more involved in it and got the training in equine assisted therapy, a friend of mine who is a director of a residential facility for teenage girls who were referred there because they'd gotten in trouble with the law, asked me to come to her agency and do some contract work and do some things with the girls that were going to actually help them. She didn't want to have a facility where they were just housed. She wanted to do some innovative kind of interventions with the girls. So we made arrangements to work with a riding facility nearby, so that we could use their horses and have the girls come out and me start an equine assisted therapy program for them. And what I noticed about that is that when these girls were out in nature with me and the horses, they were just girls. They were calmer. They could think through things better. They were better problem solvers. They were kinder to each other. And these girls were required to use plastic spoons to eat with because they could make a weapon out of a plastic fork or a plastic knife, or make a weapon about just about anything other than a plastic spoon. So staff thought we were crazy to bring them out to a facility 4 girls at a time, which is how I set up the groups, and to interact with each other. They thought it would be dangerous to staff and it would be dangerous for the girls. But I worked there for 3 years, 4 days a week, and never had an incident. And people that do equine assisted therapy will say things like, well, it's the size of the horse that's intimidating. It sort of levels the playing field. And I think there's a lot to that. But what I noticed, again, was that we didn't have to be with the horses. There was something about being in nature. And it reminds me of my early days as a counselor. My first job was at the Mental Health Center in Greenville, and I was working in a program for the chronically mentally ill population. And I was talking with one of my young clients, and we just decided that we should go outside for a walk so that we could talk outside instead of in the office. And it was a beautiful fall day, and there were beautifully colored leaves on the sidewalk. And we were walking in silence, and after a while she said, you know, Miss Shelley, when I'm out in nature, I don't feel mentally ill. And I remembered thinking, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. So that should have been my first clue. And I guess after that job, when I was in private practice, I was doing contract work with agencies like Managed Treatment Services and DSS, and was going into the homes of families and working with kids and families there. And once again, I would take people outside for walks. There's something about being out in nature that's disarming. Without reliance on our cell phones or on our computers or all the distractions that we have, we're required to sort of be aware of ourselves in a way that we can escape when there are lots of distractions. So being in nature without all of that puts us squarely more in touch with ourselves and what's going on inside of us versus what we think is going on inside of us. When people go to a doctor or a counselor, they're normally kind of rehearsing in their minds what they want to say, what they want to accomplish, what they hope will happen. We've all got our own spin and our own story about who we think we are and why we are the way that we are, and what we need to do about it to fix it or change it, and our story about what's wrong with us that we can't. All of that stuff. But being out in nature and getting grounded and reconnecting with our feet, reconnecting with our breath, and checking in with ourselves and asking the body what's going on is going to come much closer to telling the truth than any of the stuff that we come up with in our heads. And that's why I call what I do body-centered psychotherapy or body-centered counseling and personal growth.